So, thank you very much for all our guests to be here and for you, dear guests, who are listening to us. Although we are genderly separated here, but it is not a requirement that men go that side and women go the other side, so don't worry, this is not a sign. First of all, let me introduce our special guests. Professor Dr. Rastko Jović, he's from Serbia, and he has been employed at the Faculty of Orthodox Theology, University of Belgrade, specializing in canon law and practical theology since 2014. And before that, he worked as a teacher of religious education in various high schools. Today, he's actively involved in multiple conferences, international exchanges, multi-religious dialogues, and international projects throughout his career. His scholarly contributions span numerous articles published in esteemed theological journals and volumes. He has also cooperated with the World Council of Churches and with the Global Ecumenical Theological Institute. He has held a significant role within the management committee of the international project People in Motion: Entangled Histories of Displacement Across the Mediterranean. Please welcome him. To his right, there is Father Emmanuel Ilodigwe Chekwube. Is that correct? Yeah. Thank you. He's a Salesian religious priest of Don Bosco. He's a missionary from Nigeria. So as you can see, the tides turned. Now missionaries come from Nigeria to Hungary. He has served as a missionary in Liberia and also in Ghana, and presently he is a spiritual director at the Don Bosco Salesian School in Nyergesújfalu, Hungary. It's a high school. He has also helped in the Salesian Street Boys project in Nigeria. Ágnes Lux, doctor, she studied political sciences and law. She completed her PhD on the Children's Rights and Ombudsman institutions. And currently, she is a research fellow at the Hungarian Research Institute Center for Social Sciences. Inside of that, she is in the Institute for Legal Studies. And she's an assistant professor at Eötvös Loránd University Faculty of Social Sciences. Ms. Havasi, Virág Havasi, is a sociologist with a degree in law and economics and head of the Department of Social Work at the University of Miskolc. She has worked within Roma Gypsy communities for over a decade in Hungary's northeastern region, Borsod-Abaúj-Zemplén megye. During this, she conducted research, for example, on new institutions and the overall functioning of the child protection system, the new role of the churches in this field, and educational initiatives. Welcome. Well, first of all, before we go into details, I would like to ask you, and whoever takes it, just say it. What does exactly street children mean? They live habitually on the street, they work on the street. From what extent can we say that a child is a street child?
Is it on? Yes. As a matter of fact, we are lucky in this respect because in Hungary there are no children on the streets, thanks to our good childcare system. So I don't know what does it mean in other places.
I know what it means, because it means that a child doesn't have a home, doesn't have somebody to rely on. It's only on the street. So, and that was what we did in Nigeria. Yeah, Nigeria, my country, is a very good country, but due to bad governance, some important things are not paid attention to. So what you can imagine is a street elderly person in Hungary here is better than a street child in an environment where I worked at. So at the age of 13 or at the age of 14, practically the child is living on the street. He doesn't have a shelter, he or she, because not only boys, girls, doesn't have a shelter, doesn't have a place to sleep. He's on the street. He works so hard to earn money in order to eat something, and he's there. So that was what we do, that we go there to meet them, we play ball with them, we try to associate with them, and at the end of the day, due to some supports we got, we try to invite them to come into a comfortable house. So what it means, according to the explanation or how it's being said, street child, that is what it means. A child that is living on the street practically. It rains on the child, it's sunny on the child, it's cold on the child.
Basically, just one thing came into my mind, that it's true that the Hungarian social service and child protection system and legislation prevent the child to be street children, let's say, what we know as a, I don't know, common phenomena, so not in a legal term, but what you mentioned too. But I just wanted to have something here to mention on the children who live in care, basically, because they are absolutely at risk. So the children who lived in a state care, that's for sure, because the state stepped into the place of the biological parents who couldn't raise the child, and okay, it's fine. But after that, it's a common phenomenon, a quiet, sad phenomenon, that after leaving care, when someone is stepping out at 18 years old, who is legally not a child anymore, because he or she became already an adult, but yesterday he or she was just a young person in the care, but without anything, basically, without a very little money and very little skills in most cases, with a kind of background where she or he couldn't really bound it with, became, for example, homeless people. So that's what we know, that, okay, they are not children anymore, but it's a quite common phenomenon. And these children and these young people can be linked quite easily with criminal activities, can be involved in prostitution, or were already, and so they became, again, a kind of children at risk.
It's so interesting that you're saying, I used to work with homeless people at the Malta Nights organization in Hungary, and when I was thinking on these topics, I realized I have never seen a child on the street in Hungary. I've never seen a child on the street. Actually, in Mexico, I used to live there too. They always had a shelter at least, or a shack or something where to live. But that's absolutely true what you're saying, that 18 years of age and they appear. They appear in the shelters in Hungary, in Budapest, and they appear at the daycare kitchens. And yes, they normally use drugs, they drink, and they get involved in criminal activities. That's a huge problem I experienced as well. What about the situation in Serbia? Because I just read that poverty is quite high in your country. It affects around 12.1% of the population, nearly 800,000 people. But my question is, do you have a data about children living in extreme poverty, regarding especially those who live in the streets?
Yeah, thank you for your question. As I agreed before, I'm going to speak in Serbian, and they're going to translate. It's a joke.
I will translate him. I promised him.
Well, I was updating a little bit the data. So 800,000 people are affected by poverty, but actually 500,000, they are really in poverty, and the other 300,000, they are probably on the brink or on the edge of poverty. But actually the data is even worse now, because they believed that after the war started in Ukraine, the number of people affected by poverty is even increasing. So it's now about 630,000. So we can calculate that altogether maybe it's even maybe 900,000 people that have been affected by poverty. And concerning the children, we have no exact data. The data that I have found is that in Serbia we have around 1 million children from 0 to 14 years old. And just to compare, in Hungary you have around 10 million people, Serbia now officially have around 6.6, I think 6.5 million people. So 1 million are children. And out of those 1 million, according to data, we have 122,000 children who are affected by poverty, who do not have enough money to fulfill their daily allowances. And beyond that, we have 28,000 children in absolute poverty. And in Serbia, absolute poverty, that is like to live with 100 euros per month. So this is the situation as we speak today that we have. And concerning children in the street, yesterday we had a presentation of Milan. He spoke about that. And actually there is no data how many children live in the street. For example, in Belgrade, the data goes from 90 to 500. So nobody actually knows. And Milan also mentioned yesterday, most of these children, they do not actually live in street. They have some shelters, or they live in some, how to say, unhygienic communities, if that is, yeah, slumbers, yeah. And what they do, they actually work on the street, or they've been exploited by some gangs to work on the street, so that's their position. And the most affected are Roma population in Serbia at the moment.
You mentioned how the Ukrainian crisis affected poverty in Serbia, and I would like to turn to Agnes because she said in the previous material that she sent that it is an obvious statement that changes in the environment affect, indeed, children, and they are affected disproportionately, so not just like any other people in society, but much more than that. And what would be those social changes that you would name that you find the most worrisome regarding this and regarding the development of the children?
It's a very big question, basically, and I would be the happiest if I could say the proper answer to this question, because it's basically it's a question for all of us. It's a global phenomenon. That is it not only the climate change, but also it is the effects of the climate change, and all crises affects basically the most vulnerable ones. So it could be also an armed conflict, it could be also a natural disaster, it could be the quite widespread effects of the climate change, from the heating through the different changes in the temperature to the frequent and more stronger natural phenomena like storms even in Hungary. I think we could easily experience during the summertime from the, I don't know, ice fall from one day to another, and then even more drier months. So all crises, the financial crises, so all kind of crises affects the most vulnerable the most, basically. So this is the same thing with the climate issues too. And the most struggling with this climate issue is that basically, however we already see and experience on our own skin the effects of these changes in the climate around the world, maybe you can also tell some examples also from Africa or from different countries where you could have missions doing, because we see the population where really growing, where are really young continents, let's say also Africa, where the basically the most of the children will live until 2015 based on all the estimations, so not in Europe, not in everywhere else, but Africa will be the youngest country, let's say, or like the youngest continent. And the very harsh consequences of the climate change will touch, for example, that part of the world more. And what can we do? We need to do also at political level, at international level, at national level too, climate litigation, try to empower the children in some sense, because we who are sitting like here, we won't live basically when our children and our grandchildren and or the future generation will still here at a burning earth. And so we cannot, it's a moral obligation basically to do something now, because we see now the statistics, the research is, and thinking not on us, because we won't live, unfortunately, but these children who will born or who already born, they will be longer living people with the medicaments and so on and so on, so we know these. And that's why all of us has responsibilities in different qualities, in different levels, basically, because it said that the climate crisis is a child rights crisis. That's what it's a good sounding word, basically, but it's said by the UNICEF, the world leading child rights agency.
Well, it's very interesting that you're saying, and we will get back to that point, what they said, that the climate crisis creates a child rights crisis, because I'm really interested in that. But let me turn now a little bit to Father Emmanuel. Professor mentioned that probably there are 90 to 500 children on the streets in Belgrade today. That was the situation, more or less the situation, or even worse in Turin back in the 19th century when John Bosco, the founder of the Salesian order, founded the Salesian congregation, and he took care of those children, girls first and then boys. There was a time when both boys and girls he took care of with the hundreds, and he created a whole system of education. The preventive system of education, it's called. And that was the 19th century. But as far as I know, Salesians still apply this kind of education, working with the most vulnerable and the most disadvantaged children and youth in the world. How can you apply those ideas that a man in the 19th century were successful to apply now in postmodern Hungary?
It's very important to point out that for Don Bosco, presence was very important. Because when we are present in every situation, we will be able to notice things that are not going well. So in the 19th century, a lot of young people came from smaller villages to Turin to look for work. But because of the Industrial Revolution, they were not able to get jobs to do. So majority of them are already from a poor family and they don't have jobs, so they ended up staying on the street. Don Bosco, becoming a priest, a diocesan priest, he saw a situation. He felt the situation and he made a step in order to get a solution to the situation. So that means that he noticed these young people. First of all, he was present in the environment. He noticed that these young people are on the street. He went to them, understood them in their situation that they are on the street. And after that, he looked for how to help them. So this was how our congregation started, actually, because it was through these guys, these young stars that he welcomed. Okay, he taught them skills. What he did was not to give them money, but he taught them how to work and make money for themselves, how to become useful to the society. He brought them, first of all, he gave them shelter because that was what was missing. They were not living in a comfortable environment. He looked for a comfortable environment, gave them a shelter, and after taught them skills, and after they learned these skills, he helped them to get job, but he didn't stop on that. He always go to their boss to know how they work and to know how they are treated. And this is what I think that is missing in the European environment today, not only in Europe, but in other environments, that presence is missing. Even we that are here, a lot of us, we are rushing from one environment to another, from one office to another, so I work in a school where young people, they tell you, Father Emmanuel, do you know what it means to live alone in an empty house? Very rich parents are doing so well, but the difficulty is that they don't have time to be with the kid. They buy the expensive phone, expensive laptops. The young child have a separate room, everything there, but no time to speak with the child, to ask, how are you doing? How was school? What was the assignment? So I think that this is the difficulty that we are facing. I've been 7 years here in Hungary and I've traveled around Europe. So maybe I am not correct, but this is my experience, that a presence is missing. A lot of us are rushing, that we don't pay attention to the most important things. And this is how we apply the preventive system in our schools, in our environments. We are present. We are present in the playground. Now I am dressed like this in an official way, but when you see me in the oratory, I will not be like this. You will not even notice me, because I will be in a short knicker, I will be with my football shoe. I play with them, I pray with them, I study with them. And I think that this is the key. And also in families, we need to pray with them, we need to play with them, and we need to study with them. So this is what I think, and this is how I think we can apply the preventive system in the European environment today, where we don't see many young children on the street, but we see young children at home, but they are lonely.
Maybe it's not a secret that I am also a Salesian cooperator, a lay cooperator. So I also have a Salesian heart, and I understand very much what you're talking about. And actually, I used to work also in the northeastern region, in Borsod-Abaúj-Zemplén County, with gypsy children and youth. And that was exactly the key that you were talking about with the work for them. They came from extreme poverty. They don't live on the streets, but practically it is like as if they lived on the street. They live in really deplorable conditions, many times with absolutely dysfunctional families. And to gain their trust, that was also always the first place. If you gained their trust, then they followed you. If you didn't, you could do whatever you wanted. There's nothing you could do with them. And Virág, you also work with this kind of people. You work with Roma Gypsy communities, Roma Gypsy inhabitants in Hungarian villages, and you also said that in parts of cities where they live in quite ghetto situations. Could you give us some of your experiences, how they live there, how you could work with them? I would really be interested even in some casuistic examples, if you have, about their lives.
How to start, because I would like to reflect. So, first of all, for example, gaining the trust of children, I think it is very easy with the smaller Roma children. After adolescence, it is getting harder, but they have so big and open heart, so I think they are the easiest children of the world I met with. Regarding the type of poverty, it's quite different than that of, for example, in Africa, because that kind of extreme poverty almost doesn't exist here in Europe. For example, we have this absolute data measuring extreme poverty. The ones who lives on less than $2 per day, it is 0.3% here, but for example in Nigeria it's 30%. So we are talking about very different worlds. But we have, of course, our own problems. And one of them, for example, regarding the hunger topic, since we have the system of institutional cheap or free meals in schools and kindergarten, during the weeks, there are almost no problem in hunger of children, but there are the weekends and there are the summer holidays. However, for that we also have programs if local government decides to apply for these types of subsidies. Yet still exists this layer of gypsy children who starve. And besides this, the quality of their food is very bad, and it's quite interesting that we can meet fat poor people also, and this is because they eat greasy meals and a lot of hydrocarbon in also in drinks and noodles and chocolate at the beginning of the month. So, and of course with every connected health problems. So this is one problem. Another, and winter is coming, and this topic of heating the houses is quite a huge one. And it is a multi-layered problem because on the first place, typically the condition of the houses is very bad, so they are not energy efficient. They have the strategy to heat just one room, if they have more, because sometimes they don't have more than one room in their houses. And if they don't have wood, they heat with garbage, for example, which is not healthy for their health, and it is not healthy for the health of the planet either. And also there is the way to go to the forest and pick up illegally. Nowadays it is not permitted to collect wood there, which is a crime, and the parents can easily find themselves in prison for this. So there is not an easy decision to make for these families. But I have to say, but during the last decade, since the last big financial crisis, seemingly our gypsy population is in a better condition because I see clean houses. Even these houses are poor, but the majority of them are tidy, nice, and also their dresses are changing. So I really appreciate these kind of changes. But that doesn't mean that the gap between our gypsies and the majority of the society would decrease. On the contrary, unfortunately, the gap is widening ever since. And there are a lot of other things. Maybe I will follow it later.
Yeah, that's an incredible experience. The sweetness of the children and the roughness of the teenagers. Of course, our children too are the same, but I think this is exponential in a sense with the gypsy community. Yesterday we heard from Professor that in Serbia there was a document adopted in 2022 addressing children in street. It was May 2022. And this document acknowledged that there are risks. So could you expand a little bit on the findings of this document?
Actually, Milan yesterday, he was talking about this document also. And I would not say that there is much that this document actually reveals. It's one thing that first it's acknowledged that we have an issue, and this issue is children in street, and that's important for start, let's say. And the other thing is that the document is very, how to say, administrative. It speaks about actually measures, how to not to see these children, how to incorporate them into society, or how to pull them back into the centers for social work or some other offices, not to see them. And I think this is the main goal of this document. So when you read the document, it's very practical, like what centers for social work should do, what police department should do, what the office of prosecutor should do, what NGOs and others should do. And it somehow interconnects all these different services in order that these children are going to be pulled out from the street. So that's the main dynamic of the document. But also document mentions that NGOs should take part into this problem and all that other stuff. And when I was preparing for this, I mentioned that thing that bothered me a little bit, but of course I do not expect this. But if you look at the situation in Serbia, you would see that there is a strong cooperation between church and state in Serbia, and this cooperation is almost visible every day if you look at public TV stations. But at the same time, this document shows and proves that church has not been recognized as a, how to say, as a social force in Serbia. So how people perceive and how the government perceives the church, it's mostly in connection with the tradition, with the moral values and those stuff, with the idea of, as you know, Orthodox churches, we are almost national churches, so you have Bulgarian church, Romanian, and if we would have Hungarian. So they're national churches, and in that sense, this is how they've been perceived. So there is no, in this document, any mentioning, or even church didn't obviously interfere in this. So how church could interconnect with this, and how church could offer social services for these problems. And I would say that each document like this one is kind of invitation for the church to develop its other nature, its other consciousness, and that consciousness is not only about preservation of tradition, nation, and all this stuff, but also about the stuff that really bothers the society and the people that we live in. And I can talk for longer, but maybe I should stop. But I can give you just one example, which is very simple. In Orthodox Church, we have a fasting periods many times in the year, and like 200 days per year. And this is very interesting for me, because whenever I'm dealing with the issue of fasting, it is strange how church is always speaking that we should fast. But once you compare like the prices of food, if you want to fast, and the prices of food if you're not fasting, this is like so expensive that at some point you believe that only people who are rich could fast, actually, because this is too expensive. And I think that this insistence sometimes, it also shows that we are not aware of the real situation on terrain. And this is something that is important, I would say. And as a theologian, I need to stress that we can do whatever we want. We can do, we can help what you said, and I completely agree. We are rushing from one place to another. But for example, for the Orthodox Church, especially in Serbia, what we need is a strong theology. We need to understand what our theology speaks to us. And once we understand that, we're going to change our practice in history. And this is important. For example, just one simple, and I'm finishing. For centuries, we've been speaking that the idea of Orthodox Church and probably Catholic is the same. There is not much difference. Is talk about kingdom of God, kingdom of God, kingdom of God. But at the same time, we understood that kingdom of God, and we always say this, transcends history. And this gave a bad impression to people that somehow we do not appreciate history because we are waiting for some kingdom of God that is going to come at the end of the world. But I would say that our theology now is changing, and we are not speaking now about kingdom of God as just going beyond the history, but we are talking about kingdom of God as affirmation of history. And if we really start to believe in that and start to work on that more in theological terms, then I guess our church is not Serbian Orthodox Church, but many other churches are going to be more conscious about their true role in society.
Yes, because that translates itself into action.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Otherwise, you're just rushing and you think that you're doing something, but you don't have a clear idea what is actually your identity as an Orthodox or as a Christian in general.
My approach to the African situation used to be a couple of years ago. I worked as a blogger, and I wrote a lot about Christian persecution. I told you about that earlier. And writing about that topic, I bumped into the African situation time and again, and especially in Nigeria, where you have the Fulani herdsmen, and then you have Boko Haram, and in the northeastern region, practically there is a genocide affecting a lot of children. There are children who are forced to fight, children from 5 years up, probably drugged, and weapons are given in their hands. So it is really such an extreme situation that we can't even imagine. I will have to tell you another example. I made an interview with a bishop from Nigeria. He was an evangelical bishop, and he came to Hungary, and I asked him about the situation, and he said, yes, a week ago my cousin was killed. I barely escaped from an attack of Boko Haram. And he spoke about this with such serenity and ease and happiness, I would say, that I didn't see any stress on him. It is, well, that's what it is. That's how we live our faith. We stand up for what we believe in. That's how it translates into action. That they came, they kill us, and those who survive, they start it over again. Did you have any experiences, any hard experiences like this in Nigeria? And have you, what have you actually done in those camps where you work for those children on the streets?
Thank you very much, because this is a very important question that a lot of people following the media and the information, it can be so sad to see that sometimes they give a wrong impression about all this. Boko Haram is a terrorist group in the eastern part of Nigeria, a small village in Nigeria, that they say that they want the Western culture to be cut out in the eastern part of Nigeria. So the government didn't allow this, and they started bombing, doing a lot of bad things. Yeah, I know a lot of people say that it may be Islamic group, but I don't have that temerity to say it's Islamic group. Reason being that in 2011, when they bombed the biggest transportation station in Nigeria, it was not only Christians that was there. We had Christians, we had Muslims, we had traditionalists, we had people that were just going for their own business, and these people died. So in Nigeria, it's a very interesting situation, because no one can understand what their target is. They kill Christians, they kill Muslims, they kill anybody that doesn't agree with their mentality. And sometimes they go to the village and they steal young people, as he said, so steal them, give them a lot of drugs in order for them to get people to fight for them. But despite that, the idea I want to correct is the media. Because the way the media carry this is as if Nigeria is a no-go area. So you step into Nigeria, you die. But I was like, 200 million people are living in this country. So this situation is in a part of Nigeria, especially the eastern part, and in a small village in that eastern part. Personally, I didn't experience this. I also hear the news, the way you hear it in televisions. I didn't experience this, but some of our workers that lived in that area, they really said it was terrible. It was so sad. But something touched me. Despite all this situation, people still go to church. People still believe in God. Despite the fact that he doesn't know, maybe he goes to church, he will not come back alive. But people still pray. Families still gather together some place to encourage each other and to pray. So it's something that motivates me a lot. I asked myself that question. I am in an environment where going to church is not forbidden. Nobody is beating you, nobody is killing you. But it's so difficult, especially for the younger generation, to step into the Christian environment. So it's just a question I've been reflecting about. But responding to your question, I didn't work in a camp, but how we worked with the street boys was that there is a big park in a part of the country. There is a big city. So these are where these guys are staying, these are where they are sleeping, these are where they're walking and doing all sorts of things. So what we did was that every Sunday after Mass, short knicker, we don't wear all these nice clothes, so it's as if you are looking down on them. We also look simple. We go to them on the street where they are, and we played football with them. So this was how we worked with them. We played football. In the process of playing football, we tried to whisper some good words in their ear, because it's so sad, the experience of these guys. You can imagine people treating you as if you are not a human being, just because they are on the street. You don't have father, you don't have mother, you only steal, you only do drugs. Yes, he's doing it, but something made him to be there. Instead of criticizing, help. So that was the mentality we came with. We didn't come with the mentality of saying you're doing drugs, you don't have parents, you are living in the street, you are stealing. No, but we came with the mentality of let's play together. You're a human being, I am a human being. And in that, I whisper to you, say, hey, you see, this drug you are doing, it will not help you. So you need to, we have something better for you. We can offer something good. And when we got this support, this big support, we were able to build a house where we welcomed some of them. It's interesting that going back home to Nigeria, I meet some of these guys. Majority of them are working in a good office, and they are living their own life. Because we try to help them to get a skill. They studied in our technical school free of charge. We got supports and we were able to pay for everything. You can study as much as you like. And after studying, we have contacts with companies, and they were able to take them. And none of these companies are complaining that they are misbehaving or that they are stealing. So naturally, they are good guys, but situation made them to be on the street. And when we were able to touch that goodness in them, immediately they try to turn around and they change to a better person. So this was what we did, and this was actually how I was part of the whole situation. It's still going on now. I'm working here, but we still do that. We have a priest that he called himself a street priest. He dressed like them. He go to the street. He plays with them. He organized music with them. And in big occasions, he invite them to our youth center and organize small program, give them clothes, give them necessary things that is needed. And those that we can be able to take in the house, we take in. Those that we are not able to take in, they still on the street, but he's in contact with them. He goes with volunteers, and they try to take care of them. And if somebody is sick, we have also volunteer doctors that come in, and they are able to take some medical care free of charge. So this was how I came into the project. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much. It was really touching. I had a friend, he was also a missionary, but from the Philippines, from the Divine Verb congregation, and he told me that there at the Philippines also there are a lot of street children, and they live practically on the hills of garbage, and police persecutes them practically, so sometimes they shoot them in the back without any warning, because that's how they try to kind of handle the situation of those kids who are involved in crimes, obviously. But that's how it is. Sorry.
Still, in addition to this, because I wanted to pass a message with this. Actually, yes, in Hungary we don't have street children, but we have street men and women. Our attitude towards them is very, very important. It's not right to treat them as rubbish just because he's staying on the street. He's still a human being like me and like you. Situation made him to stay on the street. Once I organized with young people, we went to the street to give food to the street people, and we spoke with one guy. He has two degrees. He was a teacher before. We had some psychological issue relating to family. He was not able to move on. He was not taking care of himself. He quit job, 2 certificates, and he's living on the street just because of psychological problem. It was not his decision to be on the street, but things happened to him that made him not to move forward, and he stayed back there. So whenever we have the opportunity to meet these kind of people, let's treat them as human beings, because that is what they are.
Thank you so much. And from this personal point of view, let's go a little bit over to the other side, to the global point of view. And my big question to you, and it is, how could you explain this, that the climate crisis affects children's rights, and why experts say that it created a crisis in child rights? How exactly is this? And also, this is a global problem, and it requires global initiatives. But we always read about local initiatives. When we talk about the global climate crisis, we try to do our little thing with the garbage, with the consumption, etc., etc. But if you don't do this globally, nothing will happen. So how do you see this? What could be a solution for this situation? How could we step up against this crisis? So these are two questions. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. And I also want to reflect for both of you, basically. And it's connected to your question about healthy environment and children's rights. I want to further what you said, that yes, these children are human beings, and we are the same. So this is the same idea behind the human rights paradigm, basically. So the universal human rights regime is laying on this same statement what you said, and yes, that's why all the theorists share the idea that the human rights regime is partly rooted back in the Christian Jewish heritage, partly in the Roman laws, because this is the same, that without any discrimination we share the same fundamental rights everywhere in the world, just because we are human beings. And the reasons and roots can be explained in different ways, but this is the same. And this is very important when we talk about children's rights, because the children's rights are the same, that we are sharing the children under 18, sharing the same human rights everywhere, and the children are children first. So the children can have bad situation, can be addicted, can be living in poverty, can be criminals even, can be, I don't know, misbehaving, but the rights are the same. So is it not about how to behave or something like this? Because you are not questioned, for example, or all of us, that how we behave, do we pay taxes, are we smart and nice with, or I don't know, family members and during the traffic. So this is also the same, that we are humans and the children are the right holders. And just connected to your examples, what you mentioned. I remember back in the days in 2013, when that time I worked for the Hungarian Ombudsman, and we ran investigations in children living in poverty, let's say, about the healthy environment. And this was quite interesting, because since then, no ombudsman took the floor again to do any kind of follow-up investigation on these issues. However, we investigated this kind of things, that there are children, there are families, yes, who are not living on the streets, literally, or in a legal way, because they have shelters, but these shelters are absolutely not safe enough, not energy efficient enough. Indoor pollution is quite high. These children can be affected by pneumonia and different lung diseases much more because of the bad circumstances. If there is no light or electricity, that how can we expect to perform well in the school when they cannot, I don't know, do the homework or write, anything without any electricity, for example, if there is no table, and there is no eyeglass for a child. So it was so complex. And this is also a right to healthy environment, you know. So this is not about choosing going by foot and not by car. So this is also one part. And you ask about the responsibilities. Yes, we all have, but of course the nation states have in that sense, because here in the Hungarian case, or in Nigeria, or everywhere, who are binded by the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, because it's a almost universal convention. It's legally binding, also in Hungary, in Nigeria, everywhere, in the big polluting countries too. But the states, yes, they have responsibilities not to invite businesses, for example. I think maybe in the Hungarian case you can tell examples, which are not environmental friendly, let's say, or do investigations and trying to help these people to make energy efficient homes, and I don't know, not criminalize to pick up the wood, for example, and then they won't, I don't know, put to the fire the clothes, which are quite easy to get from charities too, and then they will burn it because they don't want to freeze, of course. And yes, the unhealthy food, is it absolutely, they cannot really pay for the healthy food and so on and so on. So the states have responsibilities and also, space to help out people from poverty, because they are even the most vulnerable within a society, and it's a child rights issue, and it's a right to a healthy environment, but also the best interest of the child's right to develop, to evolve their capacities. So this is listed in the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is already a global one. So, it's a quite interlinking issue. And yes, we can do this, selective garbages thing, but this is also, it's just one part. But you mentioned also the adult homeless people. Yes, this is absolutely right, and this is not only a Christian idea to talk about this, but this is a human rights idea, and this is very dangerous. And for example, a constitution like here criminalizes the homelessness. So this is not a thing what we have to move forward.
What Ágnes mentioned about poverty and about all those aspects of poverty, in your opinion, does that create a vicious circle in regenerating segregation between the Roma community and the Hungarian community?
Definitely. But first of all, I would pinpoint that not every Roma is living in deep poverty, and not every person living in deep poverty is Roma, but the majority. So there are overlapping in this field. And yes, there are a natural circle, because you can imagine with low educational level, you will not have opportunities on the labor market, you will not find at all job, or you will get low paid job, and then you will have bad conditions in your house, bad food and bad health, and that will prevent you to take job again. And all of this together causes stress, and constant toxic stress increases the occurrence of different addictions. I know a lot of gypsy people who smoke. They cannot buy the boxes, but they make it for themselves, so it is even more unhealthy than for an average citizen. And also mental diseases. I know a lot of women taking sedatives. There are a lot of women with depression. And they, of course, these problems are not treated at all. And then under these conditions, what the children experience in these families, especially in their first period of their life, these conditions can cause even damages in the brain structure, and of course it will have the consequences later in their behavior, in their performance in the educational system. And also another problem that they don't see patterns, how to integrate, how to give healthy responses. So these together, yes, they create a very serious vicious circle.
Well, thank you very much. Marty just signaled that our time is over. So thank you again for all of you for your contributions. And I would say that this is a topic that is deeply saddening. It crunches our hearts, I guess, that there are children who live on the streets and who are forced out of a cozy home. Not just that they don't have children, but they don't even have a place to live. So we have a lot of work to do, and I hope that we will have the possibility of taking at least one child out of these conditions in our lives. Thank you very much.